the most important thing we're going to talk about is keeping you well when you're working. And working from home, working in the office means lots of things to lots of different people. But the principles of keeping you well are exactly the same wherever you work and however you work. So the most important thing is that ergonomics, sitting correctly essentially, is not about finding the perfect chair and the perfect position and sitting still. That will not keep you well. The most important thing is we want you to constantly move. So there is absolutely no problem with me starting my working day sitting like this, and then 5 minutes later sitting like this, and then standing up and getting onto my computer and working like this, or working like this, or reading like this. One of the things that the research has shown us over the last 10, 15 years is that if you sit for longer than 6 hours in whatever chair, your calorie rate, that means the rate at which you consume your food, your calorie rate drops down to less than 1 a minute. Now, at the same time, your insulin levels, which is how you convert and store your food, also plummet. And that has a very detrimental effect on all of your muscle tissue, and that includes your heart muscle. So the way we keep you well is to keep you moving. In short, we want you to behave like monkeys around your furniture. So I might stand like this, and then stand like this. If I stood like this all day, I'm sure I'd have a pretty bad neck. But I'm going to carry on moving, and my principles are always looking straight. So my principles, whether I'm sitting or standing, is I have my eye line at the top of the screen, not above here, the top of the screen, and then I'll generally drop down. Arms, principles, you want them supported. So ideally, if you're sitting, get your chair underneath your table, take your armrests off if they're in the way, and get your elbows on your support, and then you can work. That's what we don't want to see. This is going to give you shoulder pain if you're in that position. So if you're lucky enough to be able to create a standing desk, then the regime is you might stand for 40 minutes, sit back down for half an hour, up for half an hour, sit back down for an hour, so that you accrue 3 to 4 hours of standing in your working day. The last thing we want you to do is to stand all day, but we want to break up that period of sitting. So in this chair, I can sit forwards, I can sit backwards, it lets me rock, it lets me move. And if I don't have a standing desk at home, if I'm not lucky enough to have that, then I can use an accessory like this, which is the lightest accessory on the market. It's also a very good price. It's one of the most effective from a cost efficiency point of view. And it means that whether I sit or I stand, I can always be in the right position. These are very common in the pop-up desks because they're only pop-up offices, because they're only 12 kilos, which means that they can easily be slid between white goods in your kitchen or your bedroom or wherever you're working. So, most important thing is that the principles of keeping you well is keeping you moving. That keeps your calorie rate up, that keeps your insulin levels up, and that doesn't have the detrimental effect on your muscles, which inevitably start getting tight and start getting painful. So I'm going to show you some principles of other chairs. Pretty much, they're all the same. And most people who say, I don't know if my chair's right, to be honest, often have a really good chair. They often don't know how to use it. Sometimes the locks are on. Most chairs have a lock, but they should be freely moving because every chair wants to facilitate you being able to move. So if I was sitting like this for a while, getting under my desk, that would be fine. If I was sitting like this, putting my feet up, that's absolutely fine. So the principles of it is that they should all move. The last thing you want to do is sit in a chair that doesn't move. That is going to end up with pain. So the principles of this are exactly the same. Kneeling chair, which is much less expensive than the more traditional office chairs. And lovely thing about these chairs is they're so well designed these days that it doesn't matter if I'm 6'3" or 5'2", the principles are exactly the same. And again, I can sit very comfortably rocking backwards. There's nothing wrong with me sitting like this. There's nothing wrong with me sitting like this for 30 seconds because this chair is constantly helping me move, which is keeping me well. So if we move on to what happens if you don't have the funds to provide a chair or purchase a chair, these are some really great ways of turning a chair that doesn't move into a chair that moves. And with this one, if you haven't got arms, it's the easiest way to turn it into a swiveling, moving chair. You have to use your trunk a little bit more to keep you upright, so it's something that you start off 40 minutes, then the next day you might sit for an hour and grade yourself into it, but a very inexpensive way to keep you moving. Even less money is simple sit disc, sometimes called a stand disc, and again, I'm just plopping this on my kitchen chair at home, and it means that if I'm reaching over one way or I'm reaching over the other, it's facilitating my movement. So I'm not allowing myself to get into that position of 6 hours of sitting. You might have seen these as well. These are quite good for people who've got back pain. And very often, if people are suffering from disc pain, they flatten their back. And getting stuck in bend can be really quite problematic if you have to sit for long periods of time. And this literally goes where your belt goes. You sit your bum right back, and it's very good at keeping your lumbar spine in a non-moving, which is not what we really want, but for the time that you're sitting still, it keeps it in the right position. It means it's then very easy to go from sitting to standing, because your back is already in the position that it should be when you're standing, and it comes with a very handy belt, so you can always keep it on the back of your chair. There's no reason why you can't put that on any of the moving chairs that you've got, and that may well help keep that nice and curved. Now, quite a lot of people working from home means working under the duvet or working on the floor or working on the sofa. And there's nothing wrong if you've got to do that, but there are some gadgets that can help you. So again, very inexpensively, if you're working under the duvet, this then comes out and this sits on the mattress and your laptop goes on there. Again, this is a very inexpensive way of turning a table that doesn't go up into, these are just to make any height, into making it a lot higher, and it'll take up to 60 kilos. So you can slide it away and bring it back out. So there's all kinds of gadgetry to get you to use the principles, and the principles are very simple. We want you to move around your furniture, not to sit with your laptop on your knee, not to sit with your laptop on your knees under the duvet, but actually sit in a decent position and keep moving whilst you're in that position. So here, if I was at a fixed height desk, the last thing I would do, I still got to maintain my eye line. The last thing I would want is to be hours like this, or hours like this. Now, there's nothing wrong with me looking at 5 emails and doing that for 20 minutes and then going back up and standing up. Nothing wrong with that at all. You just don't want to be there for hours. If you're there for hours, you will end up with pain. So, laptop goes very nicely on laptop stand, and then you will need an extra keyboard for this. Then if I push everything back, I'm then in a much better position to carry on my working day. There's lots of different types of standing desk. Essentially, these, which are hydraulic and manually operated, are pretty much double the price of the electric ones. That's largely because all of the expenses in the mechanism, and it's a much more complicated mechanism than pressing a button. Doesn't matter which type you have at all. All you really need if you're changing to a standing desk is some decent long cables. And as you can see, we've got some very long cables enabling us to stand or sit. Lucky enough to have a standing desk, you can stack things on top of each other. You can have your stacking area here, you can have your sitting area here. But there are some principles that are absolutely key, especially for necks. The neck's in the best position when it's standing. We cannot get the neck in as good a position standing as sitting. So if you've got problems with your neck and shoulders, especially towards the end of your working week or at the end of a long day, see if you can get some standing going into your life. The principles are push everything back, create some space, because I want my elbows here. If my elbows are here, these muscles can relax. They're not going to get hard and tight, they're not going to give me pain. My eye line is going to hit the top there. This is another person's desk, so I just would adjust it for me. These monitor arms are absolutely brilliant because you can have loads of different people on the same desk. And the most important thing is that you don't want to have it inverted or flat, because if you picked up any type of newspaper or anything to read, you wouldn't hold it like that. You would have a natural reading angle that's particular to you. And every screen has an inbuilt 15 to 30, 45 degrees tilt to accommodate for that, because your neck finds it a lot easier and you find it a lot easier to read when you've got an angle than when you're flat. So the principles are push everything back, create some space, get your elbows on, and then this little support here is, you've probably seen lots of jelly ones around offices. Came in when we realised that a lot of upper limb tension, or used to be called RSI, was created when people had their wrists in that position. And after a long time of doing this, or click, 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 in that position, the nerves in the carpus, there's 8 little bones here, were literally being bashed together. So it's very important that you keep your wrists flat or have a gentle incline and don't go into that position. We spend our lives, as we get brought up, writing. So we get taught to read and write, and we hold our pens essentially here. So this is the position in which our arms are most comfortable. And increasing the angle, flattening the hand, increases the tension throughout this part of the arm. So upright mice are actually very good from the point of view as they mimic the way that you have been taught that you use your hands. There are a lot of jobs, a lot of professions, and a lot of people who don't have an ideal space, are never going to have an ideal space. But there's a lot of things you can do in a very small space. So I spend most of my time working on this plinth or in the gym next door, but between every patient I've got to write some notes. So in a very small space here on one very old IKEA desk, instead of being like this on my knees, all I have is a very light laptop stand that lives in my rucksack, comes between my home office and my work office every day. And it's been with me for way over 10 years, probably the best investment you'll make. And I've got then my eye line in a very good position to talk to my client, make my notes, check a report, read something. And I haven't got all the principles right, my elbows aren't totally on, but I'm only going to be here for a couple of minutes. And if you can remove the aggravating factors from causing the problem, you will keep yourself well. And those things over the course of a day, over the course of a week, really add up to stop pain in your neck, in your shoulders, and in your lower back. Just to recap, for movement, there's absolutely no evidence to show that one chair is better than another. All chairs and sitting on balls are like Marmite. Some patients like some people like others. And as long as your chair keeps you moving, that is the most important thing. If you're in an office and you've got a chair, ask them HR, ask them how it works. See if you can get somebody down to see you to actually get that rocking motion going and make sure it feels comfortable for you. But the most important thing is see if you can start standing to break it up that sitting.